Hi, my name is Dan Darnell. I want to show you how to call an RPG program using EGL Development Tools. That's EDT for short. EDT is an Eclipse project that brings the EGL programming language and tools into the open source space. You can download EDT at eclipse.org/EDT. The project site also includes documentation and tutorials. First, let's take a look at the RPG program I want to call. It's very simple. It takes in a name and returns that name with hello prepended to it. Switching back now to EDT, I'm going to create a new EGL project. I click on the New Project shortcut, give my project a name, and pick a template. In this case, I want to use a Client with Services template because I will have both a client interface and a service interface to an RPG program. Before I can call an RPG program, I need to configure my project so that it can talk to an IBM server. First, I'm going to go into the project's properties and add the IBM Toolbox for Java to the Java build path. You can download the toolbox at jt400.sourceforge.net. Now I open the project's deployment descriptor and add a resource binding of the type IBM I binding. I give the binding a name and point it to a server. I also give the binding credentials for authentication. There are ways to avoid having to specify a server name and credentials, but to keep this example simple, I'm just going to hard code it. With the resource binding in place, we can get down to writing EGL code. This is going to be a rich client application, so I will create a service function for my RPG program and then invoke that service function from the rich client interface. I click on my server package, then on the new EGL service shortcut, give my service a name, and click Finish. I'm taken into my service source code automatically. In my service, I'm going to do a little cleanup and then create a function, calling it hello, and defining the parameter expected by the function. Now I need to use an annotation to further describe this function in terms of the IBM I program that I am calling. Rather than you watching me type this, I'm going to paste the finished annotation from my clipboard. Now let's talk about it. The first part of the annotation is the annotation type, IBM I program. And then the program name, and then the library name. I'm telling it here to use the library list. Then an array of definitions for each parameter expected by the program I am calling. In this case, there's one parameter of character or text type with a fixed length of 40. Your parameter annotations can get somewhat complicated if you have parameters consisting of structures, arrays of structures, and so on. As I create this video, the IBM I program support in EDT is new. I expect that EDT will soon have a wizard to make creating these annotations a lot easier. The last part of the annotation is a reference to the resource binding I created when I configured the project. And that's it for the service. And now for the client side. I'm going to click on my client package, then on the new handler wizard, give my handler a name, and indicate that it is a rich UI handler, click Finish. This creates my handler and then brings up the page designer. This is what you see is what you get designer. On the right side, a palette of graphical components that I can use on my forms. I'm going to drop on my form a label, an input text field, and a button. Start with the label. And I give the variable representing this widget a name. And now the text field. And again, I give it a name. And finally, my button. And you know what? I'm going to throw another text label on this form. And I'll use that for error messages in case my program call fails. I'm going to select each element now, each widget, go into the properties for the widget, and set elements such as the displayed text. For example, on this text label, I wanted to indicate that this is where the name input should go. I'll change the label text to name. My error label I'll just leave blank for now. My button, I'll give it a little nicer title. It'll say go. Then I want to go over to the events for the button and define what happens when the button is clicked. So I choose the onClick event and say that I want to create a function and a handler, an event handler, for when this button is pressed. And that's the function name right there. I press OK, and this takes me into the source code for the function. Now I can call my service, but the handler won't know how to find it unless I include an import for the server package. So I go to the top and add the import. Then I can return to my function and actually call the service. Now I can call service functions. I say call and the service name. The tool knows what functions are defined in that service. I pick my hello function and indicate that I want to pass to that function the value entered into the text field on my form. I want this to act as an asynchronous AJAX call. So I'm going to define that here with the using clause, saying to do this as an HTTP proxy, which is an AJAX call. I need to specify a place to come back to as a part of my call. That's the returning to function you see here. I can also specify a place to come back to in case the call fails. That's the onException function. I haven't defined these functions, but I can use the tool now and the quick fix option to have these functions created for me. So there's the returning to function created. It creates a stub for the function. And now the onException function. I'll do the same for that. And create a stub for my error handler. What remains is to fill in these stubs. When the call is complete, I'm going to set my input text field to show the results of the call. And if an error occurs, I'm going to set my error label to show the error message. And that's it. I'm ready to test. Here, both my client code and my service code are running in the tool. I don't have to deploy anything to a server. I can completely design, code, test, and debug right here in the tool across all application tiers. So I switch to the Preview tab, and now my application is running. Enter my name, hit the Go button, and off we go calling RPG. The IBM server is in another city, so this takes just a second, but there we go with the result. Success! Look for future videos and/or magazine articles where I will dive more deeply into EDT support for IBM programs. Meanwhile, you can contact me with questions or feedback via my website at dandarnailonline.com. Thanks for watching.